Welcome to our third webinar series, which is organized to commemorate India's 75th year of independence. The program is structured and planned by Regional Center for Biotechnology as a part of DBT Science Setu program. Today's webinar is presented by our young and bright MSc student, Biplab and Chavi. They will showcase the life and journey of eminent women scientists who was actually one of the first women scientists from India who made significant contribution in the field of cytogenetics and phytogeography, and that's Dr. Janaki Ammal. Post this presentation, we will like to take you through a tour of RCB facility and campus, which will be followed by a question and answer session with Dr. Anil, who is assistant professor at RCB. Now, without further ado, let's invite our team for the presentation. Chavi, please join in.
Thank you, ma'am, for the introduction. As a part of the Science Setu webinar series being organized by the Regional Center for Biotechnology, we will be showcasing the life and work of Dr. Janaki Ammal, an Indian botanist and cytologist who contributed to the study of sugarcane. She is also known for her contribution to phytogeography and India's ethnobotany. So let's begin with the presentation. By the Regional Center for Biotechnology, we will
Who doesn't like to start their morning with a hot cup of tea to feel all rejuvenated, refreshed? I think most of us do. The reason that our tea tastes sweet is because of the sugarcane grown by an Indian sugarcane farmer. There was a time when India had to import sugarcane from Indonesia, and it was only in the 1900s that the Indian freedom fighter Pandit Madan Mohan Malviya suggested that India should do botanical work to improve their own varieties of sugarcane, which subsequently led to the establishment of the Sugarcane Breeding Institute at Coimbatore. The institute was trying to sweeten the indigenous varieties, and it was with the help of an Indian woman scientist and expert cytogeneticist that they were able to achieve their goal. By manipulating polyploid cells through crossbreeding of hybrids, she was able to create a high-yielding strain of sugarcane that could thrive in Indian climatic conditions. So the next time you use a spoonful of sugar and enjoy sugarcane juice to beat the heat of the summer, you know who to give credit to. The pioneering female botanist of India, Janaki Ammal. Let us choose for ourselves our path in life, and let us try to strew that path with flowers. Dr. Janaki Ammal truly personified these words through her life. She was one of the first women scientists from India who made significant contributions in the fields of cytogenetics and phytogeography, and even has a flower named after her. She was a pioneer who has come to inspire generations of female scientists in India. Through her mettle, she fought against heavy odds in an area where women had seldom presence. Her life is indeed a glorious chapter of women liberation and empowerment in post-colonial India. It's an honor for us to be able to celebrate the life of this extraordinary woman, because she truly left a mark in the pages of history by her seminal contribution towards various fields. The journey that she undertook in the early years of 20th century was something that women of the time could only dream of, and therefore her story deserves to be told. Janaki Ammal was born in Tellicherry in Kerala on November 4, 1897. She was the 10th child of Srimati Devki and Sri E.K. Krishnan, who was a sub-judge of the Madras Presidency. She was born in an era when most Indian girls were not even sent to school and women were discouraged from pursuing their professional interests. However, she was lucky enough to be born in a family which was open-minded and wanted her to engage in intellectual pursuits. She developed an affinity towards natural sciences, and her desire for learning based on keen observation was passed on to her by her father, who himself was very close to nature and even wrote 2 books on the birds of North Malabar region. Janaki completed her schooling from Sacred Heart Convent School in Tellicherry and developed an early interest in botany. Then she moved on to Madras, where she obtained a bachelor's degree from Queen Mary's College, followed by an honours degree in botany from the Presidency College in 1921. While at the Presidency, she developed a keen interest in cytogenetics as well. After her graduation, she taught for some time at the Women's Christian College Madras before winning a scholarship to the University of Michigan at Ann Arbor. And in 1924, this Malayali lady, dressed in a sari, set sail across the seas to a land that she had never seen before. Born in colonial and patriarchal India, Janaki had to face many hurdles of her own. At a time when the literacy rate among women in India was less than 1%, she chose a life of scholarship over matrimony and went to the University of Michigan, where she completed her master's in 1925, followed by a PhD in 1931, again as the first Oriental Barber Research Fellow, thus becoming the first female doctorate in botany from an American university. Her thesis was titled Chromosome Studies in Nicandra Phyceloides. Janaki spent 2 stints in Michigan, first as a recipient of the Barber Scholarship for Oriental Women in 1924 and later as a Barber Fellow in 1928. This fund was raised by Lewis Barber in 1917 to train women from Eurasia with the intention that after their study, they can return to their home countries with the knowledge and skills that they obtained in order to improve the lives of people back home. It was a very competitive scholarship and depended on an advisory committee that very carefully judged all the applications. She returned to India in 1932 and accepted the post of Professor of Botany at the Maharaja's College of Science, Trivandrum, where she taught for 2 years. Her research career began when she joined the Sugarcane Breeding Institute, Coimbatore, as a geneticist in 1934. The institute was created with the aim of improving the Indian sugarcane plant. At the institute, she worked on sugarcane biology along with T.S. Venkatraman, who had successfully increased the production of sugarcane in the country over the past few years. Ammal's expertise in the field of cytogenetics and her research in polyploidy helped to understand the nature of polyploidy in sugarcane, and she was very instrumental in creating a firm scientific basis for crossing and hybrids and helped in choosing plant varieties for crossbreeding. She worked at the institute till 1939. At that time, the sweetest sugarcane in the world was the Saccharum officinarum variety from Papua New Guinea, and India used to import it from Southeast Asia. By manipulating polyploid cells through crossbreeding of hybrids in the laboratory, Janaki was able to create a high-yielding strain of the sugarcane that would thrive in Indian conditions.
She did some really epochal work on various intergeneric hybrids such as Saccharum zea, Saccharum erianthus, Saccharum imperata, Saccharum sorghum. Her pioneering work was on the cytogenetics of Saccharum officinarum and interspecific and intergeneric hybrids involving sugarcane and both closely related grass genera and also very distantly related ones such as bambusa. Her research also got published in one of the most renowned journals, Nature. When the pollen of spontaneum fertilized the eggs of officinarum, the products retained the full chromosome complement of officinarum, thus generating a hybrid sugarcane plant which was as sweet as officinarum and had robust stalks as in spontaneum. Success was thus achieved in producing sweeter varieties of Indian sugarcane, and these Coimbatore breeds were so successful that in the first year itself, they increased sugarcane production in Punjab by 50% and were even exported to places like Cuba. Dr. Janaki's research also helped analyze the geographical distribution of sugarcane across India and also to establish that the Saccharum spontaneum variety of sugarcane had originated in India.
Her recognition was very, very slow in coming. One of her contemporaries, C.S. Subramaniam, talks about her passion for plants, crop plants, garden plants. I quote from him: plantation crops, medicinal crops, and tribal plants. So she was an original thinker, doing sort of epochal work in intergeneric hybrids, such as Saccharum zea, Saccharum erianthus, Saccharum imperata, Saccharum sorghum. So she was pioneering, right? And she was constantly presenting her work at top conferences, publishing in Nature in 1938, and coming up with the patriarchal establishment of both Western science and Indian science. So here were the top male scientists trying to prevent her work from being published in Nature. And that was the head of the Coimbatore Sugarcane Breeding Institute, who did not send her paper up to Nature because he doubted her cross, right? He doubted the fact that she had this cross. And the same her with faint praise. He also didn't, he knew that he had this amazing scientist working with him, but he was always talking down cytology. He kept saying that cytology is an Indian forte. Indians are good at cytology, not at original thinking, right? And they come here, they do their PhDs, and they leave. But at the same time, he needed her for his chromosome atlas of cultivated plants, and he couldn't do the second edition without her. And she snubbed him for the second edition. She said to him, "I don't want to work with you. You can proceed without me." And he then tried very hard and begged her to come back, but she did not. So she was a very, very independent researcher. She didn't call herself a feminist, but the way in which she worked in this patriarchal group of male scientists, you can see that she saw herself as an independent and original thinker. She didn't need these men.
Dr. Janaki belonged to the Thia community, which was considered backward at that time. This created a lot of irreconcilable problems for her with her male colleagues at Coimbatore, not only due to her caste but also due to her single status. However, she tried to overcome many of these hurdles with much courage and resolution. Dr. C.V. Raman saw the spark in her and made her a Foundation Fellow of the Indian Academy of Sciences, founded by him in the year 1935. She thus became the first woman scientist elected to any of the science academies in India. However, despite being such an accomplished researcher, she had to face a lot of caste and gender discrimination, which compelled her to leave India and go to London to work at the John Innes Horticultural Institute. How was your overall experience of getting to know her life? And were there any problems that you faced in the process? And how much time did it take you to write this book?
It was quite nice because I had some affection towards Janaki Ammal. I too was a botany main, and I have also taken botany. So it was very interesting to know more about her.
Okay.
It was very risky. It was very risky because, as you know, she was not married.
Exactly.
So there is no children or grandchildren to know more about her. So it was very risky.
As we know that throughout her life she had to struggle a lot. So what according to you was her most difficult struggle?
That may be from London during the Second World War. That time she went to attend one seminar. Then she couldn't come back. She had to stay there because all the ships were stopped. Then the war started, so she couldn't came back to India. She stayed in London itself. That time she was going to the laboratory, and in one side she could see the in her stories tells she was dying between the birds to hide.
She was in London at the time of the Second World War. While describing her experience to her friends, she mentions about how she used to dive under her bed during the night bombings and then continue with her research work the next day, brushing the broken pieces of glass off the shelves. Dr. Janaki joined the John Innes Horticultural Institute as an assistant cytologist, where she worked with the great biologist of the time, C.D. Darlington. The eminent Englishman was impressed enough with his young colleague to ask her to collaborate with him in writing the Chromosome Atlas of Cultivated Plants, a landmark work published in 1945 which decisively reshaped the field. At John Innes, she studied a wide variety of garden plants. Her research on chromosome ploidy and number shed light on the evolution of various species. And it's very important to remember that these works were being carried on at a time when Britain was at war, and it was a very challenging time for science. A few years back, the John Innes Horticultural Institution also announced a scholarship in her honor for postgraduate students from developing countries who wished to study plant and microbial sciences. Dr. Janaki worked on several pioneer aspects of cytogenetics with C.D. Darlington, including adaptive isochromosomes of Nicandra, chromosome diminution, origin and behavior of chiasmata in polyploid tulipa, and published these in high-impact journal Nature.
When she was working at in the John Innes, people would send her grasses, and top botanists would say, this is this grass, and she would say, no, it's not. It's a different grass, and she was right. So these people would find themselves embarrassed because they had got it wrong, while she had got it right. Yeah, she was an amazing scholar.
The Chromosome Atlas of Cultivated Plants, which she wrote with C.D. Darlington in the year 1945, is a compilation of cultural and geographic information relevant to various different species. It is a comprehensive list of chromosome numbers, including those of wild species as well as of their cultivated relatives, and it will be an invaluable source of reference for workers in the fields of plant breeding, taxonomy, and cytogenetics. Later, she was invited to work as a cytologist at the Royal Horticulture Society at Wisley, near Kew Gardens,
where she investigated the effects of colchicine on a number of woody plants, including magnolia, where a stock solution in water is made up and applied to the growing tip of young seedlings once the cotyledons have fully expanded. Doubling of chromosomes occurs, giving the cells twice the usual number of chromosomes, and the resulting plants have heavier textured leaves. Their flowers are variable, often with thicker tepals, helping them last longer. It was during this time that she also continued her interest in medicinal plants, something that was passed on to her by her ancestors, who were practitioners of native medicine and were known as Vaidyas in Kerala. The magnolia flowers are an essential part of the charm of Battleston Hill in London's Wisley neighbourhood. However, what many people don't know is the fact that these blooms have a touch of Kerala to them. During the war years that Dr. Janaki Ammal had planted these magnolia flowers while she was working at the Royal Horticulture Society. She was fond of the Kew Gardens and lived in a house nearby overlooking the Thames River. She was really hospitable and often organized picnics for her guests whenever they visited her. She was a loving aunt who would read out stories to her nieces and nephews. However, she was really strict about bedtime and the children were expected to be in bed by 7. Her niece recalls an incident where once she was offered a bar of chocolate by a man while they were in a bus, and one look from Janaki was enough to convince her to politely refuse.
I know that her interactions with her nieces, my mother was one of her nieces. So she used to visit my mother when my mother was young. But it was always education. She was always talking about how well educated my mother needed to be. So for her, women's education was one of the key things to get women and girls out of marriage or out of just the traditional futures that they saw for themselves. She was always looking for one of her nieces to become a scientist like her, but unfortunately they all disappointed her. And I don't think her nieces and nephews realized what an important woman she was.
She returned to her country in 1951 upon being invited by the then Prime Minister of India, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, who appointed her to reorganize the Botanical Survey of India. From then on, she was always in Government of India employment, heading the Central Botanical Laboratory, Allahabad, and being officer on special duty at Regional Research Laboratory at Jammu. She continued her work on polyploidy and evolution of plants and made immense contributions in the study of Himalayan and Northeast region flora. Her colleagues still remember the way she would take a broom and clean the streets outside the BSI office on the famous Chaurangi Lane all by herself. Despite being a top-notch scientist, she led a very simple life, always dressed in simple saris. She was very quiet about her life and often said, "My work is what will survive." Once she visited Gandhiji's ashram at Wardha and was quite disappointed to see that there was no attempt at all to grow plants and make the environment beautiful. That's because, however simple her life may be, she would always look for beauty in little things. Despite the boundaries imposed by her gender, race, and caste, she was worldwide recognized for her contribution to cytogenetics and botany. She often talked about preserving Indian plants and the need to value the indigenous knowledge about them. In 1955, she became the only female and the second Indian to participate in an international symposium in Chicago, which was ironically titled "Man's Role in Changing the Face of the Earth." In a room full of mostly white men, she spoke about India's subsistence economy, the significance of tribal cultures and their cultivation of native plants, and the importance of Indian matrilineal traditions that valued women as managers of property, including a family's plants, all of which were threatened by the mass production of cereals.
Dr. Janaki majorly worked on phytogeographic diversification of species, including cytosystematic survey of bambusae to map chromosome number and distribution of cylinder bamboos across the globe, and also on chromosome number, species-genus relationship across different plant Lonicera species, Viburnum genus, and their distribution. Besides working on medicinal and other plants, she also worked on the genera Solanum, Datura, Mentha, and Dioscorea. Also, according to her, the confluence of Chinese and Malayan elements in the flora of northeast India led to natural hybridization between these and the native flora in this region, thus contributing further to plant diversification. Not only was she an excellent scientist, but also an active environmentalist. In 1970, the Indian government had planned to flood 8.3 square kilometers of pristine tropical forest in order to build a hydroelectric power plant. It was only due to a people science movement led by Janaki Ammal that the dam construction across Kunthipuza River was stopped. At 80 years of age, she used her status of a valuable national scientist to call for preservation of biodiversity, and today, the Silent Valley National Park in Kerala stands as one of the few undisturbed swaths of forest in the country. After her retirement, she worked for a short period at the Atomic Research Station at Trombay and also served as an emeritus scientist at the Center for Advanced Study in Botany at the University of Madras. She continued to publish the original findings of her research, focusing special attention on medicinal plants and ethnobotany. In the Madras University Field Laboratory, where she lived and worked, she developed a garden of medicinal plants. During her last years, her main interest had been the rearing of a large family of cats and kittens. Her training as a geneticist led her to track down and discover subtle differentiations in the characteristics of the kittens under her care. We know that she was a great scientist and a brave woman who fought against all odds. Apart from that, is there anything that you think we all should know about her, like how she was as a person and what kind of extracurricular activities she used to like?
She was very bold woman. If some difficulties come, she is very brave enough to face it. She had so many cats in her laboratory. She called everyone by its name. When she called a kitten's name, it will run towards her. She is very interested in collecting plants. Whenever she will take some relatives with her. When she go to collect the plants, she will call some sisters, children, or somebody else. Then when they go with her, when she saw some colocasia or some plants which she was searching, she will be very happy and she will give gold coin and all to the children. So it was very interesting. I remember her. One of her niece told me she got a gold coin when she found a type of colocasia. She was interested in tennis.
So, ma'am, if you were given a chance, and is there anything that you would like to change about her life? And if yes, what would it be?
She was so shy to face the camera. Most of her lifetime, she was hiding her face. She was known to only to the educational field. Not other men known her.
Yeah, so she was not well known outside academic circles, basically.
Yeah.
So
now she is going to everybody. Even in Telecherry, after getting my book, some are asking me, oh, how is she a scientist, a famous scientist? Nobody known about her because she was so simple and humble.
Simple and humble. And I think because she was camera shy, as you mentioned, that is the reason why we also could not manage, getting some of her pictures. There are very few pictures of hers available. After reading several articles about her life, it feels like her work is more known outside than to Indian people in her own native country. So, in your opinion, till what extent is this true?
Even in this country, in Britain, she is still relatively unknown. For example, she was the first female employee of the Royal Horticultural Society.
Yeah, the first salaried female employee.
Employee of the Royal Horticultural. And you tell the RHS this, that you have to have her in your pantheon of famous scientists. And it's difficult to get either a recognition of that fact. In India, for many years, she was completely neglected. So she reorganized the Botanical Survey of India, as we know. She set it up into all these different groups. So she was under-recognized even by her own institution. So when I went to India in the mid-2000s, by then there had been a taxonomy award instituted in her name. But there was no real recognition of her work in terms of institutional recognition, right? So we set up an exhibition in her name in the Botanical Survey of India Gallery of the Indian Museum. There was a bust of her, but when I found, can you give us her herbarium specimens? They couldn't find any of her herbarium specimens. Can you imagine? So they had to get her herbarium specimens from quite far off, from Jammu. I think they found something. But the fact is, here was this most amazing woman scientist with a fantastic library. All her slide collection was destroyed. So her entire slide collection was destroyed in the sense that no institution hosted her work after her death. And that, I think, is shocking. And as young people, I think we need to recognize our scientists. We need to interview them. What you guys are doing is a very, very important role that you have to play. In order to write those articles, I found his letters, C.D. Darlington's letters to her in the Bodleian Library in Oxford.
Okay.
Where all her letters to him are kept. But her formidable correspondence with and scientific networks all over the world, her interest in the Silent Valley project is all just peripherally. I find it very peripherally referred to in her letters to him.
What is your favorite part about her life? One aspect that you found the most interesting?
So she comes from Kerala, and she comes from a relatively privileged background educationally, right?
Right.
But they didn't have very much money. Her father died when she was quite young, and she then grows up in a household where most of her sisters choose marriage over a career. And she decides she doesn't want to choose marriage. And that is a very unusual decision for any woman. And she prefers to strike out on her own as an independent scholar of botany. And that I find is very, very remarkable because she, as you know, the early part of the 20th century, the choices for women were still quite limited. And I think that period of her life is quite interesting to me, and how she builds up her career from the scratch in the face of, I think she had some setbacks. For 20 years, she had been trying to cultivate this cross, right? The Zia cross. And she was finally, when she manages to get it to flower, she's written this article, she sends it to Heredity, the journal, and with great difficulty, she gets it published, once again with the help of C.D. Darlington, right? And you can see that here is a woman who absolutely is sure that this plant is going to flower, right? And it flowers. And the two people who are gatekeeping her, and that made me very sad. And she doesn't even question him on it. Later on in life, she dressed in saffron. And she took on a sort of an air as though she was detached from everyday life, which she was in some way. She was not married. She was devoted to science. And she got her enjoyment from the countryside. Not so much. She was not living with her sisters. She lived alone. She died in Maduravayal in her laboratory. I mean, she died while she was working in a lab in Maduravayal alone in hospital. So she was not part of a circle of friends or family who looked after her in the end, which was very sad.
She continued her research in medicinal plants and ethnobotany in her laboratory at Maduravayal and kept on publishing her work until her demise on February 7, 1984. Her obituary stated she was devoted to her studies and research until the end of her life. For her exemplary contribution to science in India, Dr. Janaki Ammal was awarded the Padma Shri in 1977. From a young age, she was endowed with the courage to make choices and the versatility to change course and adapt where and when required. With her passion for plants, she defined for herself her goals and purpose and her mission in life. She achieved what she strived for, leaving behind all the adversities. It can be seen from her life that she worked at different places but did not stay for very long at any particular place. Yet, in her short stint with an institution, she made significant contribution to her field of research. We all can learn from her that though science needs time, it is not the ultimate truth. A dedicated mind can achieve great milestones even with short duration of research. Science does not know boundaries. Science knows dedication. What are some of the key takeaways that you think the younger generation should take from your book, her life? Something which should inspire young people like us?
The hard work she had, she was working. Even though she was such a big and famous woman, the tertiary people saw her as they think that she was an old saint wearing a brown sari and very simple and humble. Always she will hold a bundle of plants in her hand. Always she is carrying some plants and she is coming, she is running. She never walk. She will always run.
She was an anti-imperialist. So she was challenging the Q paradigm as well. So she was an original and innovative thinker. So in that sense, she was saying we don't have to follow what is being imposed on us from above. Let's always think creatively and originally. So this idea of a critical thinker, right? So when she was saying that we don't need to establish the Q paradigm and the way in which we think about our plants, and said, let's talk about plants much more locally and much more how they are linked, India is linked to Asia and so on. She was thinking very, very differently and in terms of the debate around botany at that time. And I think that whole part of her life needs to be brought out much more, how she was an original thinker, right? So in terms of her research, and she was also very interested in tribal plants, ethnobotany. So she's one of the leading ethnobotanists, right? So about indigenous knowledge, tribal heritage, the fact that India's environmental history draws on tribal knowledge, indigenous knowledge, knowledge of women, right? So this challenges the traditional way in which we understand knowledge, right? So I think those things students should really take away from her, and remember that India's multiple traditions, yeah. So matrilineal, tribal, indigenous, and India needs to build on those traditions in terms of its in terms of its knowledge, in terms of its botanical heritage, in terms of its heritage in all fields, in order to embrace its multiplicity, right? And its multiple ways of living and being on this earth. And she, I think, represents that. So she goes away immediately to the field where she then rejuvenates her soul. So she had a very close connection with tribal communities.
Even though she never achieved the acclaim that she deserved in her lifetime, her spirit lives on in many different ways. From the sweetness of India's sugar and the enduring biodiversity of the Silent Valley to Wisley's blooming magnolias, Ammal's work does not just survive, it thrives. Every time you take a spoonful of sugar, it's worth remembering Dr. Janaki Ammal, because her research is what added that extra bit of sweetness.
I hope you all enjoyed and admired the journey of Sugar Queen of India, that's Dr. Janaki Ammal. Now, let us take a quick tour of RCB facility, and you're welcome to ask any queries regarding RCB academic program. For that, please type in your questions in the comment box. Please play the video.
Regional Center for Biotechnology is located in a tranquil environment along the Gurugram-Faridabad Expressway. It is an autonomous institute established under auspices of UNESCO by the Department of Biotechnology, Government of India. The primary focus of RCB is to provide world-class education, training to create high-quality human resource in biotechnology and conduct innovative research at the interface of multiple disciplines. The infrastructure at RCB has developed at a rapid pace since inception of the institution in 2010, with state-of-the-art research labs, teaching labs, innovative classrooms, central instrumentation facilities, small animal facility, biosafety level 3 facility, a biorepository and state-of-the-art advanced instrumentation facilities like the Advanced Technology Platform Center and a bio-incubator which serves as a reservoir for incubating ideas in the area and help them reach commercialization. There are various areas of research in RCB. The research group under the area titled Cell Biology, Development and Behavior focus on unlocking the secrets of cells, how they divide and how stem cells develop into muscle, in addition to studying the cellular and molecular origins of how organisms behave. Areas of agricultural biotechnology aim to tackle some issues by harnessing the existing genetic diversity in plants and their inherent capacities to adapt to abiotic and biotic stress conditions in order to develop innovative and durable methods of crop improvement. Groups working on infectious diseases, both bacterial and viral, aim at developing novel therapeutic strategies against infectious agents using tools such as mass spectrometry and microscopy. These researchers will shed light on cellular and molecular basis of bacterial infection and the response of the human host towards these infections. They are trying to find novel solutions to protect the people against diseases such as chikungunya virus, Japanese encephalitis virus, and dengue virus. Protein structure and design groups are structural biologists who have a molecular view of life and use cutting-edge methods like macromolecular X-ray crystallography or cryo-electron microscopy to imagine biological molecules in their functional state. This information is used to develop novel therapeutic strategies against pathogenic bacteria and viruses, and for protein engineering to prepare molecules with desired properties. Researchers at RCB are also working towards developing innovative biotechnological applications such as novel drug delivery systems, new diagnostic tools, novel engineered protein with improved desired proteins, and improved methods to obtain desired products in large scale. These researchers subject laboratory and clinical samples to cutting-edge microscopy, proteomics and genomics methods coupled with flow cytometry to shed light on the etiology of disease and utilize this knowledge to identify solutions to these disorders. The quality of research conducted at RCB is excellent, with faculty winning top honors like the Shanti Swaroop Bhatnagar, the National Bioscience, the Innovative Young Biotechnologist Awards, and the Ramanujan Ramalinga Swami and DBT Welcome Alliance Fellowships. Since research-based learning is the hallmark of RCB, the academic programs here are deeply enmeshed with the research programs. The academic programs fulfill RCB's core mandate to provide quality education and training in the area of life sciences and biotechnology. The PhD program in biotechnology is for students who are interested in working at the interface of multiple disciplines to find novel solutions for problems in health and agriculture. RCB has recently started integrated PhD program in biotechnology, offered to students with graduate degree in any discipline of science from India and abroad. The program provides extensive learning opportunities in the broad field of life sciences and biotechnology. RCB has also recently initiated an interdisciplinary doctoral programs in the area of biostatistics and bioinformatics through collaboration with the global pharmaceutical giant GlaxoSmithKline (GSK), being conducted in partnership with other institutions by creating a virtual faculty pool. The focus of this program is on creating specialized manpower for the healthcare industry. As an outreach activity, RCB also offers research training programs for research-driven undergraduate and postgraduate students of science from various universities. Trainees get a realistic experience of several facets of modern biological research that sets the tone of their embarking on a research career. Throughout the year, RCB hosts and organizes regular academic events like the RCB Bioimaging School, national and international conferences, seminars, symposia, and training in the frontier area of basic and applied sciences in topics such as infectious diseases, drug discovery, etc., to disseminate advanced knowledge, exchange ideas, foster national and international collaborations, student exchange, and networking opportunities. RCB also holds scientific communication and communication workshops for the benefit of young scientists in India. RCB has a fully functional library and houses 500 scientific textbooks and 100 administrative books in multiple copies. In addition, an electronic library provides access to a vast range of primary literature in the form of peer-reviewed journals and reviews. RCB offers faculty residences and excellent students' facilities, including on-campus air-conditioned hostel accommodation, modern library, meeting rooms, seminar rooms, and auditorium. The hostel and student facilities are conveniently located and only a short walk away from the classrooms and laboratories. In addition, the campus also has sports and recreation facilities which encourages all-round development of the students. Campus also provides a childcare facility for all students and staff to help them continue their studies and work while their babies are being taken care of. Kridangan, the creche housed in the faculty building, is an asset on campus for employees of NCR Biotech Cluster. The spacious cafeteria in the campus serves hygienic, nutritious and delicious meals and beverages at reasonable cost. RCB also contributes towards creating resource for researchers from all over India and has engaged with institutions such as the European Synchrotron Radiation Facility in France towards this end. RCB is also involved with the UNESCO towards developing policy to ensure sustainable development at the global level and specifically in the Asian region. RCB is a young institute which is growing day by day with excellent opportunities for young people to make a career in the area of biotechnology.
Hello everyone. I hope you enjoyed the life journey of Dr. Janaki Ammal and RCB video. If you have any question, please write in the comment section of YouTube link. So I can see a lot of encouraging comments from audience. So thank you for these nice and encouraging comments. So there are two questions. One is the scope of interdisciplinary studies in biotechnology. So in our institutes, we conduct multidisciplinary innovative research in biotech sciences like infectious disease biology, molecular medicines, cancer biology, agriculture biotechnology, and system and synthetic biology and structural biology. So somebody has asked that the PhD programs of RCB, how it is different from the one offered in other research institutions. So in our RCB, we have two PhD programs, one in biotechnology and another in biostatistics and bioinformatics. So to be eligible for PhD program, student will have to have postgraduate degree in medicines, any science, technology, and candidate must have to qualify national level test like for pursuing PhD, like CSR, JRF, UGC JRF, and ICMR JRF, etc. For PhD program in biostatistics and bioinformatics is being supported through collaborations with pharmaceutical GlaxoSmithKline, and specific advertisement for these PhD programs appears in the national newspapers and RCB website twice in a year, and one in January and another in July. So there is no any other question. So now I would like to thank Biplab, Chabi, and organizing committee and ITRCB for organizing this event. And I would also like to thank all the audience for joining us today. And with this, I would like to conclude the event. Thank you all.
Hello, sir, there is another question. Hello.
Yeah.
So there is another question on that there is some neurobiology studies in RCB.
Yeah. So there is right now currently we don't have it, the neurobiological research lab, but the Dr. Tushar Mathi, they are working on the neurobiological diseases.
Especially Parkinson disease.
Yeah.
They are working on, and there is some developmental genetics lab also.
Yeah.